Alright, guys, let's start drawing. So, I was recently taught a method to draw things like more expressively, and it's it's called glyphs. I don't know the technical term. This is just what my friend called it. Alright? And the way it works is you draw really minimalist relative to what the style you're going for is, but like just try to communicate it with as little information as possible. So for example, let's make let's make let's draw scared amber, right? Like perhaps we could have let's have like when someone's scared, typically they'll have like really wide eyes, right? You could like make a you could make the eyes like that. Now I've attempted this part before, right? And it doesn't always work. Sometimes you have to start again from scratch, but it's really fast. It's really easy. So when you're see, that doesn't really look scared, but you know what? I'm gonna roll with it. This looks like mesmerized, right? So let's have like have big pupils if we want more like calmness, not calmness, but pupil size is weird. Sometimes sometimes for certain expressions you want certain things. So yeah, we got that. Now here's the cool part. Now see, let's say she's intrigued by something, and we want it to be in that direction, right? So we're not going to draw the head. We're not even going to draw the arm. We're going to draw the finger. We're going to draw what she's pointing at, right? Now I know drawing hands is kind of hard, but if you simplify it to just squares and circles, then it's not actually that bad. So if you just do that. Now if we just have this hand drawn, right? Then that means if the pose doesn't look natural, we can just move the hand. Then we can figure out the arms later, right? See, I'm not drawing this quite right. Let's try this again. Okay, so we get the finger there. Now look at your own hand and try to do it the same way. So the thumb would come under the finger, like that, and the other fingers would actually be hidden behind the thumb. Right, so there, and that's pointing. Now that doesn't really look like a hand, but in the context of this, you can see it looks like one. Yeah, we can rotate it, we can move it. Let's say she's astonished by something like slightly up, kind of there. Yeah, so we can also like draw a second hand like that. Like she's like maybe she's bracing herself. Maybe this is from a top-down perspective. Who knows? Now where it gets interesting is you can do this for like you can even do this to like the legs. Now note, the more attention you pay to the shapes you're drawing, then the more stylized you can go with. Because the way I'm doing it right now, I'm not controlling the art style at all. I'm just going with the basic pose for the sake of a video. But like, we do this. Now keep in mind, this is not a replacement for construction drawing. You have to use this at the same time most of the time. But practicing with only glyphs can help in like posing stuff. That's that's basically the whole purpose of it, is to pose things better. So we're gonna draw ears there. Now what I'm noticing is that very this is a very chibi like style, and I don't know if we want that. But let's start moving things around. Let's see what we can get. So we're gonna move this up here a little bit. Maybe let's, yeah, there we go. We're gonna extend that out a bit. Now for the body, that's always the trickiest part, but it helps if you establish where the head is. Now I know you can already kind of see where it is, but just to make it a little easier, it's nicer to just add it in there as like a baseline, because then you can draw the neck. And from here, now you can see there's a slight upward perspective there that I hadn't noticed yet. So now I can draw.
Hi, video.
Sorry, I got interrupted for a second. So now we can see the slight upward perspective. We can like establish what pose the body's in. So perhaps the legs are like jumping back a little bit, right? Now keep in mind, I'm actually showing a lot more detail than you would really need, because like boom, that's the leg. That's also the leg. Like this intersection, it's sort of like you can indicate that. Perhaps they're like splayed out a little bit. You see, now we're starting to see a 3D shape here, even though it's just flat things. And then you can notice when certain things are off. Like, for example, that hair swoop, way too small. Wouldn't have noticed that if it weren't for the fact that I had everything else sort of like partially drawn. Now that kind of looks cool, but it's a little too big for Amber. Sometimes it takes a while to figure out the right like that's correct. There we go. We can use that to plan that out. You see, now we already got an arm established. Though if you're not doing the like outer parts, then you're probably gonna want to use like your regular sketch lines for the connecting pieces just so that it's more readable, like that kind of deal. Now the expression I have here, again, it wasn't what I originally planned to draw, but that's because I didn't have a plan. When you don't have a plan, you end up drawing something else, right? Right? So if we, uh, there we go. Just a second. I got it. Deselecting is kind of difficult sometimes. But now we see the character in its entirety is starting to come together. And there's a lot more form here than you would ever expect. Because we were just using like tiny little lines. Right? Sometimes you might want to try a different layer. Like, for example, the tail on Amber is quite a lot to deal with, just in general, because it's so like large and not, I wouldn't say complex, but it's very precise. So sometimes you might want to draw it on a different layer just so that you can correct it more easily. Amy casually forgets how to draw spiral for 2 seconds. MP4. See, there we go. And we're almost done of the sketch. Now, as you can see, using using this kind of method, you kind of gotta control it. Because if I didn't have, I didn't decide a style to go for. That's one thing that caused this to not turn out super great. And also, I didn't know what pose I wanted to draw, so I ended up with something completely random. But I didn't end up with something bad, so that shows something about this method. I'm just adding additional sketch lines for the sake of like perspective. But yeah, this is pretty much a finished sketch.